Hi, I'm Jameson Newlander, Alan Frog from the Lost Boys, and you're watching the Frog Brothers Podcast.
Let me get
It's refreshment time, folks.
I'm just gonna go watch a movie.
Do you like scary movies?
I don't watch movies.
I have to return some videotapes.
You have a TV?
No. I just like to read the TV guide. Read the TV guide. Don't need a TV.
Books, records, films, these things matter. Call me shallow. It's the fucking truth.
Over 1,600 titles, each for rent at just $2 the first night, and only
I don't watch TV.
Yeah, but you are aware that there's an invention called television, and on this invention they show shows, right?
It's a Laserdisc.
Okay, I want channels 18, 24, 63, 109, 87, and Weather Channel.
Welcome to the Frog Brothers Podcast with your hosts, Justin and Alec.
Hello, and welcome to the 75th episode of the Frog Brothers Podcast.
I'm just going to take Nick's name off there since he's not here tonight.
Yeah, Nick is out on assignment. We had a pretty big weekend. My name's Justin. This here is my brother, my confidant, my number one guy.
You are my number one guy. No, we become one.
That's a good mix-up.
Off the rails right away.
So, it's been a crazy week.
Crazy week.
So there's a whole lot of shit to cover, but there's plenty of time. So don't worry, kids. We'll get into it.
Yeah.
So we'll start off with breaking news. The Spider-Man trailer dropped, an hour and a half ago?
Mm-hmm.
So that was fucking exciting. Do you want to talk about that right now?
We can do that in just a moment.
Ooh, just a moment. Okay, so...
I think we're going to do that as a separate video, so...
So you'll have to tune back in on that.
Yeah, that one's going to be on our YouTube exclusively, so...
That was very, very aroused.
Yeah, it dropped about an hour and a half ago. An hour and a half.
CinemaCon, Sony screened Ghostbusters Afterlife to a bunch of industry folks there, so...
Yeah.
If you're looking to avoid spoilers, you may try to avoid some of that. I'm assuming they'll be pretty good about not letting stuff get out, but obviously I think that's really to help drum the hype up at the movie theaters and hopefully do some badass marketing stuff in theaters.
Yeah. I'm not that worried about spoilers knowing that, but doesn't mean I'm not going to keep my eyes open.
You always got to be a little cautious because, I do want to go into this movie without knowing everything, so...
But, there's a lot of people that are freaking out now about it, and a lot of people are freaking out saying that there's not going to be a fan thing now. It's like, you don't even know that. But even if there isn't, who cares?
We're getting the movie this year.
They made the movie for you. That's what they made for you as a fan.
Yeah.
What's good? Take you in the back and suck your dick?
Yeah.
As Mr. Brown would say, or Mr. Blue, I think, actually, in Reservoir Dogs.
That's more accurate. I think it's Blue. And other news,
the Plasma series is being spotted in stores, the next wave. I haven't seen it yet, but I also have it pre-ordered, so I'm just kind of waiting on that.
I pre-ordered the whole series. With the move I had recently last week, I moved in with my now fiance Liz. We got engaged last night, so exciting stuff. I was excited about it. What you just said
is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
Fuck it.
I just had to,
just be an asshole. Hey, I did see those Plasma Series figures in person at Planet Comic Con over the weekend.
You did?
There was a vendor selling them for $40 each. So, fuck that guy.
Shit-eating son of a bitch!
That's my biggest thing with buying fucking toys at cons or shows like that. If you don't know anything or you don't really collect, and, they're aiming for the casual buyer, people that just buy shit on impulse.
Mm-hmm.
They don't expect you to look up, the sold for price on eBay and try to haggle with them or get a good price or be like, you do realize you're fucking high to be selling it that rate. Those are brand new in stores currently.
To communicate!
So, that was, pissed me off, but I did see most of the line. The figures look great in person, but obviously I wasn't going to pay up charge for convenience.
Right, which is basically a double upcharge too. So eat an asshole.
$23 figure for $40. All because you got up and went to Target in the morning, probably. So,
yeah.
Our friend Andrew Simpson has had some issues in the past with his Novos Proton Pack. He bought the Spengler Legacy Pack, and they haven't delivered, and they started throwing major shade at him on just by not replying or giving a fuck in general about their customer service. So he created a change.org petition, so we shared that on our Twitter. So if you could go sign that and help a brother out, help a sister out, help a friend out. Anyone that's pre-ordered from a Novos knows that. Now, I was one of the lucky people that got an Novos Proton Pack kit after I canceled my order, and then they had them in stock randomly before a lot of people even got their pre-order shipped, which is riddle me that, Batman, but besides the point. So if you can help, go out there and sign that petition so we can get some action, because there's a lot of folks out there that didn't get what they paid for.
Yeah.
What else do we got in the news, Alec? You're a little high over there.
That's all I have in the news.
That's all he has in the
Spider-Man,
news.
what I had written down earlier was Spider-Man No Way Home leak trailer, which I did watch the leaked version first. But that's because I was like, well, there's no way I'm not going to see what these spoilers are, so I may as well see them for myself.
Yeah, you may as well. And if it's a trailer, I have no problem with the trailer, right?
And I was about to show Justin the leaked trailer.
And it gets on, and it's on the main page.
And I was like, oh, okay, cool. We don't even have to watch the leaked trailer.
So we got to watch the full quality,
I will just say,
trailer.
I liked the trailer. I'm looking forward to it. I'm stoked.
So I was telling Alec earlier, I was thinking with CinemaCon playing Ghostbusters Afterlife, I'm wondering if they played this trailer ahead of that, and that was one of the other reasons why that dropped today, because it seemed like it was really in response to
maybe
the trailer leak earlier. So they're like, well, fuck it.
I don't know, maybe.
I don't know. What do you know?
I don't know. It's possible. I don't know.
Pretty good.
You want to move on?
Let's move on and do a little song.
Water cooler, water cooler,
Give it to me.
water cooler,
Yeah. Yeah. Do it.
Water Cooler Cult. On this week's episode of Water Cooler Cult, we find out who found Bigfoot.
This is an Unsolved Mysteries.
Turns out nobody gives a shit. So what if? This is the what if T'Challa became a Star-Lord.
Yeah.
I quite enjoyed this episode. There's some fun stuff in there. What I love the most is how they didn't play it out straightforward. They changed so much of what we kind of know about how T'Challa would actually
Very much
fit
like
into
the
that
last
universe.
episode. Most of this, I was like, this is amazing. And then there's a few things I could nitpick about and definitely be like, all right, well, this is clearly way cartoonier than the actual movies are. And, like, can't take that as seriously, but hey.
The thing for me is it feels as corny and cheesy in some of the moments as the one-off comics do, because there's not a whole lot of background that goes into those, right?
Yeah.
So unless they're trying to do a whole series or some sort of spin-off of that, which I'm fine with these just being one-off episodes. I'm liking that.
Yeah.
I was really happy to hear Chadwick Boseman's voice again, and they dedicated the episode to him, and
it's interesting to know that will be his last performance as T'Challa, so
yeah.
It was good to hear him again. Right off the bat, I was questioning his character a little bit, just because it's like, I feel like Peter Quill was the way he was because of where he grew up in his environment. So I felt like T'Challa should have been a little bit more
cartoony like that, maybe?
Yeah, a little bit more of an asshole, not necessarily exactly the same, like with the same values and everything, which wasn't bad. And I'm not saying, it was terrible or anything, but that's one of the first noticeable things I was thinking, like, I don't know.
Yeah, the only thing, this part of this episode felt rushed, especially when T'Challa was basically realizing that, or he was feeling betrayed by the way he was raised by the Yondu.
Yeah.
To some degree, and kind of realizing that, he didn't have the purest intentions, even though he kind of played up to... Because Yondu just kind of plays up whatever someone needs to hear, right? He's a manipulator to some degree. But he also cares about the people, too, which they did a pretty good job showing that, right? Because, we all got to see Yondu die.
Yeah.
So to see him back...
Well, it's like at the point we are watching this show, people like Yondu and Nebula. Mm-hmm. So it's like you write them as likable characters, and it just works. It's accepted already. So.
Yeah, because even though they've still done some harm, they're still like...
villains at this point in time in the regular MCU.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Michael Rooker does his voice. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I was happy to hear him in there.
Thanos. That was another thing where you're like, this is a little too cartoony because they keep making jokes about genocide. Like, how many times did I say the word fucking genocide in this episode? I can joke about genocide now. Because they do in fucking Disney, dude. Disney jokes about genocide, so can I.
Yeah.
There's some fucking Disney jokes here about genocide on the Frog Brothers podcast coming at you.
Yeah, to me that was a little disturbing on there. You're like, okay, it feels a little off-putting. And then Thanos just came across as like a big cartoon character in this.
Yeah.
And not like he's drawn as a cartoon.
He's just like, oh no, I totally changed my ways, dudes. I'm here to party now.
Yeah.
I'm going to joke about genocide, though. I might do it still.
Yeah, that was interesting a bit, and then you didn't really see a lot of the other characters in there, so it was more the Ravengers, or at least Yondu's.
Yeah, no Bautista.
Yeah, he wasn't even asked. I think James Gunn had a Twitter conversation with him and said, why weren't you in there? He's like, I wasn't asked. James Gunn was kind of pissed, but
yeah, I think Bautista has gone on record as saying that after Guardians 3, he's not going to play the role again. He doesn't want to. Probably because of shit like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure he wasn't super expensive. You could have got him. And it was noticeable that it wasn't him. So.
Yeah, and I think, that's the controversy of Disney is...
That was the girl who voices Nebula, wasn't it? I couldn't tell if it was.
I wasn't sure or not. Some of those are harder to tell.
I wasn't 100% either because it didn't have the same vocal effect, I don't think.
I didn't quite go through and watch the credits on this. Like I said, it was so busy when I watched it was like... a blur, but I enjoyed the episode.
Wakanda is like supposedly destroyed, but I think that it obviously wasn't. But he says it was at one point.
Yeah, they don't really get into that. There's a lot of stuff that was kind of like left out in the open. I did find it interesting that they explained how they grabbed him on accident. They said there's something like a signature that's that wasn't from Earth.
Yeah, I mean, just the throwaway line, just like, thank God we invented the, whatever device.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense in that because obviously all of the vibranium is not from Earth. It's from a crashed meteor, right?
And they do the Ocean's 11 style heist scene.
Yeah. Yep. For sure.
And you see a lot of the other characters from Infinity War around Thanos, like Proxima Midnight and Ebony Maw.
Yep. Yeah, they had a good job of throwing some of those characters in there. So,
and then obviously the Collector has a lot of interesting shit laying around.
I didn't care for the guy who did the Collector's voice.
I didn't care for the Collector at all in this.
Yeah,
because it was nothing like his character in the movies.
No,
and normally that's fine because it's a different portrayal. But this is supposed to be an alternate universe, but it's still supposed to be MCU stuff. So
yeah, it's still supposed to be canon enough. So he just felt completely out of place.
Yeah, he was like all of a sudden a warrior badass, and you're like, wait, I've never even seen this guy attempt to fight someone.
Yeah, no, some of the changes they made, I did like how that they recognized who Star-Lord was at the beginning, instead of Peter Quill, when he's like, oh man, you don't know who Star-Lord is? And he's like, Star-Lord, the famous outlaw. Like, I loved how they did that bit. That was a fun
it was funny to
change-up.
see that guy, because I remember what he looks like from that movie.
Yeah.
And he's, throughout this one, just like, basically sucking T'Challa's dick.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to, in space.
Yeah.
Although... I will say Peter Quill probably had a lot funner time in space with alien babes because T'Challa is not at all concerned about alien punani.
No, he didn't seem to, yeah.
Star-Lord was all about it. He was fucking drowning in that shit. Probably had all sorts of space warts on his cock.
Yeah, well, I'd probably seen a space doctor too. Fix it all up.
The astronaut dog, what's that thing's name? It's from Guardians, the original comic
I always
series.
forget his name.
He's
in Cosmo, I think is his name.
I think that's it, actually.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Cosmo.
Howard the Duck, voiced by Seth Green in there.
Yep, you gotta love that. That's all the good stuff right there.
It seemed like he was doing a Rocket Raccoon impression, though.
Yeah, but, I mean, he did the voice in the first Guardians when he did that, so that was actually him still. Although he doesn't have a lot of dialogue, so it's hard to pay attention that's actually him.
Yeah.
So.
It was interesting. He was in there for more than a second.
I did love how at the very end they show that Peter Quill is found, and like how fucked up things got.
They have the Wakandan spaceship before that, though, too.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, I already talked about how I didn't like the Collector, so that's fine. They escape in the Wakandan ship. Yeah, so Peter Quill. I like
Dairy
that.
Queen still.
Dancing to Flock of Seagulls. I've seen Flock of Seagulls live. You were there.
Mm-hmm. Yes. It's
like 11, 12 years ago or something. Yeah, and then they dedicated, obviously, to Chadwick Boseman, which is nice, I guess.
I like how they have the big thing, and they're like, once you see that Peter Quill's picked up by Ego correctly, and he doesn't have any outside influence on it, that they just imply that he becomes a fucking psychotic monster. So you're like, season 2 of What If? I would love to see them play that part of the story.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Just because it'd be fun to see him like destroy the world.
I'd be down.
So yeah, that was a fun episode. It was a good mix. That episode to me felt a little shorter than the first one, but I think the runtimes are pretty similar. But they're trying to get through some of the things. Like I said, with a short series like this, you're going to deal with some pacing issues.
Yeah, it's just like a short episode of a series. I mean, yeah, it's fine.
Trim the fat, get to the point.
Alrighty then.
I guess we'll move on to this week's...
What do you mean you haven't seen this film supreme made up of a dream team? This movie's pretty great. You're fucking late. Let's accelerate and get it on your plate.
And you don't want us exposing ourselves. And you don't want us exposing ourselves. Exposing ourselves.
I was watching back on one of these videos.
Yeah.
On the TV earlier, just like, doing some quality control, seeing what it looks like.
Yeah.
Seeing how the lighting looks, things like that. And I realized there was one point where I was just literally like sitting there talking like this for a minute.
With your eyes closed
I
because
looked
you're so
so fucking baked. It was insane.
There's been some moments on this show where you are so high, like I don't even know if you know your own name. So I appreciate that about you, though.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever helps you with your anxiety and existential dread. I have those too.
It helps me with everything negative in life, except having less money. It doesn't help me with that.
No. You got to pay for your medicine.
It's time to pay the piper. Well, we're talking 1977's Eraserhead, David Lynch's debut.
I like how you said debut. Sounds like some shit I would say.
Yeah.
You dumb bastard.
At least I corrected myself before you did.
Yeah, I usually just try to roll with it,
You just roll right over it, and it's half the time, especially if it's someone's name, that's when it's really funny.
You just got to get past it, man. Just power through. So, Alec had me watch David Lynch's feature film, Eraserhead.
It's a fucked up movie.
This movie gave me some weird fucking dreams.
This movie, I almost cried during this movie earlier. I'm just an emotional human being, apparently, because all sorts of movies fucking make me cry these days.
Once you accept that you are an emotional being, it becomes a lot easier, because you spend a lot of time as a person with depression or anxiety, like just bottling everything up and being like, you can't tell if I'm happy, sad, dead, or alive. I just look like I'm in a coma.
Yeah.
So when you accept those things, it makes life a little bit easier.
This had one of those crazy productions.
Yes.
He had like a 21-page script, sold it as that, and they thought that's what it was going to be. Then he expanded it to a full movie, and then it took several years to complete and everything. Jack Nance plays Henry Spencer. You may know him from Twin Peaks as Pete Martell. But, it's funny. I always, as a kid, this movie, I never really could tell the difference. It's one of those ones that the cover looked exactly like the cover for Barton Fink. And I should have brought that in here, but have you seen that?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
It's a Coen Brothers movie, and it's about filmmaking. It's really fucking good, actually. It has John Goodman in it, too. We should watch it sometime. Cover it for the podcast.
The thing I love about this cover, though, in particular,
it looks
like that high contrast. It looks straight out of the Universal Monsters universe.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of this movie feels straight out of the Twilight Zone without ever trying to explain anything. There's no fucking... You don't have any narrator telling you anything, so it's all just as David Lynch loves it to be, it's you see it, you digest it, you take away whatever you want to take away from it, and that's all David Lynch wants you to do. He doesn't want to explain anything to you because it takes the fun away from him.
Yeah, famously, he has a couple different quotes about that and this film in general. One of the most popular memes of David Lynch on the internet goes around from an interview where somebody's talking about it, and he says, believe it or not, Eraserhead is my most spiritual film. And the guy interviewing him says, elaborate on that. And he goes, no.
But I get the spiritual vibes out of that for sure compared to some of his other stuff.
Yeah.
Especially with, okay, so obviously we're getting into spoilers, so if you haven't seen this, go watch it and then come back.
It's on HBO Max for those of you who don't own the DVD.
Yeah, easy to watch right now, so check it out. You get this dystopian future that shows up. It almost has like that Orwellian 1984, the Wanton Seed, those types of vibes in there. Like,
well, you want to talk about this opening shot with fucking his sideways head, and you can see half of his face.
Yeah,
and then sort of a planet that almost looks like the Mystery Science Theater 3000 planet. Like those type of old.
Yes.
This movie is like a very reliant on 1930s vibes in general, and the dystopian thing. It feels like it's heavily 1930s and 20s.
So for a movie that was shot in the mid 70s, comes out in 77, it really has a lot of throwback vibes to it. If we didn't tell you it was 1977, you'd probably have no fucking idea when it was.
They call the guy looks like he has a bunch of weird shit on him, that he's pulling all those levers and shit by the window. He's called the Man in the Planet.
Yeah, and the credits, correct?
Yeah, so he's basically pulling levers and making some weird shit happen in some sort of dream dimension, or however you want to interpret that.
Yeah, and so
then you see that fucking thing come out of his fucking mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Which I can't explain this to you right now, but watching this time, I was like, oh my God, this feels... There's so much of this that is exactly right out of fucking Twin Peaks: The Return. Like, it's crazy how connected it feels now.
Just catching those things.
Yeah, like that, all of that beginning opening scene and all those kind of weird shots that they do in that. All of the stuff in the theater, which we'll get to later.
Mm-hmm.
The sound in this movie. The sound design is fucking nuts.
It's amazing. For a black and white film, the sound design is one of the things about this movie that shines the entire movie, almost the entire time. There's nothing I would change in this because it's like on point.
Yeah, the sound designer did all sorts of weird shit with David Lynch, and he always does. Like the Twin Peaks: The Return, I read so much about the sound design of that show, like when it was about to come out and stuff, because there was articles about it and about how David Lynch would go into the studio with this guy, and because half of it's not about the score. There's not necessarily a score for most of this. There's parts by what's his name, Fats Weller. There's little musical cues and stuff, but a lot of it's mostly like ambient tones and like steam sounds and white noises.
Yes.
Different noise generators. There's also just like weird shit where I read they put microphones in plastic bottles and like would blow into it while slowly pulling the mic out and all sorts of weird shit to create some of these sounds. And
it sounds very, very atmospheric, right? So you get so many different like tones. So it's just unsettling because of that, especially because of some of the environments you see in the film, which are very, if you've seen a lot of black and white, you can kind of tell like when it's a happy, like outdoor, like feel good scene. And obviously in this, it's a lot of indoor, very dirty, very unsafe, unpleasant outside. And inside, it just feels like dark, damp, and depressing.
Yeah. Well, it depends on the black and white movie too. If it's black and white just because that's what was available, or if it's black and white because that's just when it was made.
Sure.
This is obviously an artistic choice.
Yes.
But it's interesting, and it's visually fucking so stunning the way like he shoots like dust and stuff.
Yeah,
and it's all like this real practical shit that like...
And the eraser shavings, I'm pretty sure they actually used real eraser shavings for all those scenes at the end, so... And there's so many things, like you wonder why it's called Eraserhead, and it strictly comes from, they extract a piece of this person's, what you're assuming is his brain, later on, much later on in the film, and there's a pencil machine that's stamping on the erasers, and like they cut this piece down and they do a test of it, and quality control pass it, and it's one of those things you're just like, did the inspiration for this movie come from that? Like David Lynch seeing pencils being made, and then like
it was a lot of
where is that born from? Because when I watched that and saw that scene, I could see a lot of inspiration for the rest of the movie around that whole concept.
It's a lot more about parenthood, I think, and what would you call it? Domestication and that kind of stuff. Other people think the movie's about abortion, anti or for it, or whatever else too.
I didn't get any of those vibes at all.
I definitely got the domestic one. Like I can see it being domestic, domestic life and stuff, and like fear of that, because David Lynch did say he he had a daughter that had clubbed feet when she was born. She had to have a bunch of corrective surgery. So it's like a little bit of dealing with that, you can say, because it's a deformed child.
Yeah.
But then you take that to an extreme artistic, surrealist fucking depiction that's like, it's nuts. Stanley Kubrick made the Shining crew watch this because he was like, this is what we're fucking doing.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
Yeah. And
the baby, and it looks like a creature. So, I mean, that is so unsettling, and it looks so authentic and great.
How a low-budget movie like that, too, and it's like...
It's one of the best-looking effects you'll ever see, and there's a lot of controversy and a lot of hush-hush around what the fuck actually was
I've read
was made
so
from.
many different things that it's supposed to be. The most popular responses people seem to think are either a like rabbit that's been skinned, a goat or cow fetus, and then they turn it into a fucking puppet because that thing's eyes move.
Yeah, the eyes move,
the tongue moves, which you could easily, make a puppet out of, like, that would do that, but the eyes look like fucking good. It's disturbing.
And it reflects light in such a natural way, right? We were talking about this briefly off the show, that lots of times with creature effects and special effects like that, they don't look right because there's like that translucentness to a skin of a living creature, right, that you can see. So even if they're furry, like there's still those areas and things that give cues away to tell you that they're real. And the creepy thing about this movie is like this thing looks like it's real. It looks like it's really reflecting light, and there's like some levelness to it that really is authentic and disturbing and unsettling in so many ways.
So it kind of opens up after all that weird shit happens at the beginning. He's walking across just like this bleak landscape, basically. And it looks like, I don't know, it looks like old like pictures of like Manchester, England and shit to me. Like it's weird and like...
It's weird like that, but
old, like Philadelphia kind of like vibes.
But the dirtiness and the gringiness of it, or the griminess of it, gringiness, what the fuck am I making up words here? That felt like very Dust Bowl era stuff. So, thought that was pretty interesting.
Justin's tired tonight.
I'm very tired.
You're stoned out of your mind, man.
That's me. You.
Just me. Well, let's see here.
What else did you write, boy?
It's just some different things to consider about 1977 and this being a movie that came out. The black humor that's throughout this movie, the gore, the surrealism in general, and then I also wrote the eroticism and how eccentric it is as well. It is so fucking fascinating.
There's some real creepy and unsettling things in this.
We can kind of...
So where do you want to start with those?
I'm just going to go
down your
I pretty much took notes of the whole plot, but I'm going to,
Okay, we can pause and discuss.
That's what we'll do. Basically, the woman across the hall tells him that Mary called him and invited him to dinner with her parents. So he's like, all right, cool, thanks. And all of these scenes are done very, like, slow.
Yeah, they're
lots of long pauses.
Very calculated, very slow moving. Before you get to that, though, what I really enjoyed about that was like when he gets into the lobby and checks his mail slot, and then he gets into the elevator.
Which, by the way, the lobby, we should point out, has the chevron pattern floor. Like,
yes.
you'll know from Twin Peaks if you know that.
Yeah, there's definitely things in there that make it feel like you're also in an alternate world. So.
Yes, an alternate reality, if you will. That's what it, like, if you were to try to connect this to Twin Peaks, you could easily do it and be like, yeah, he was in some sort of interdimensional waiting room.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And then at the end, he's finally not in the waiting room anymore when he's embraced by the lady in the radiator. But we'll get there.
Which is pretty wild, too. But I love the elevator doors closing, because I don't think that was like a real elevator. That's just a set. But the doors didn't close tightly, and you could still see the elevator moving in the background from me. So like that was a really nice element on there, because you're not necessarily going to see that or pay to have a shot like that. But to actually have the detail of the movement and the light peeking through and getting dark as the elevator lifts, I really enjoyed.
Yeah, there's lots of like steam and industrial and stuff in this, and it's very interesting that way too. Like just the steam in both sound and visual elements, and like you just kind of feel like this movie is a bunch of wet dripping pipes. Like it's very interesting. So he gets to Mary's house, and meets her mom and shit, and yeah, that's the weirdest fucking family meeting ever.
Yeah,
except for maybe one from Texas Chainsaw.
The father's a very interesting character as well.
Oh yeah, he fucking like at one point just pauses and is like
totally whacked out of his mind.
Smiling.
He says he's had the same job for a very long time, because he asks what he does for a living. He's like, well, I used to work for the printing press.
Yeah.
So
I almost got Ghostbusters 2 vibes too, because as soon as he started talking shit about I don't even remember what he was talking about. He was talking shit about something angry, and it was like the noise, just the general ambience, and then loud noises started getting louder with him.
Oh, yeah.
It was like I expected pink slime to burst.
Yes. And then the little chicken scene. I mean, they look like...
Well, I like the right before the chicken scene, there's the fucking grandma in the kitchen. She goes in there and like makes her stir the pot, and then like lights a cigarette for her. And then you can see that that's the only thing she's actually doing. She's like just sitting there like this, and then actually you can see her puffing on the cigarette, though.
Yeah, yeah. If you didn't see the cigarette smoke going, you'd just assume she's dead. That was pretty creepy. And then he explains the hens, and they look like Cornish hens, so they're very small, but he's just like, they're very... He has a whole moment explaining the...
So just weird for the sake of fucking weird, man.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of like It. Because the Chinese food scene in both It movies, where there's like the food is bleeding and shit in weird ways.
Yeah, he goes to cut the food. He's like, hey, would you do the honor of cutting this? And he cuts it, and then there's like this weird, it almost looks like toxic sludge or oil coming out of it.
I think it's supposed to be just blood, yeah.
Yeah,
like,
but it's like a thick, nasty blood. It's so like, it's gross.
Yeah, it's gnarly as fuck. And then the things are wiggling around too.
Yeah.
And then he just smiles, and Mary fucking cries. And then like runs out of the kitchen and shit, and he just smiles at him still and just kind of chills and stews in the weird.
Yes, that's
and,
a pretty wild moment.
The electricity sounds and flickering. Again, like when we watch Twin Peaks, you're gonna be like, oh man, this reminds me of fucking Eraserhead. The return, that is. Did you and Mary have sexual intercourse?
Yeah, and he doesn't want to answer, and then she gets on him and like is kissing on his ear.
Yeah, she kisses him and like licks him and shit.
Weird.
Yeah, it's this weird, like second of thing, and then she comes up and's like, "Mom, stop."
Yeah,
and you're like, "What the fuck am I watching?" And then she explains that, "Oh yeah, well she had a baby because you fucked her, and it's at the hospital, but you have to get married, and then you can take it home, and you can take her with you." And he's like, "Holy shit."
Yeah, that's kind of like when I was talking about some of the Dust Bowl vibes. That seems like very something that would have happened in the Great Depression. Like this whole level of, it's your responsibility now. We don't care how bad things are. And this is your problem. So
yeah,
it was like real fucking dark and depressing.
Then the dog whines.
Oh, because the dog is nursing a bunch of puppies in the house, and they show a big scene of that, and then the dog gets upset later.
Yeah, after the dog whines, they zoom shot through. And then, like, go outside. And then it's does some weird transitional shit. Mary feeds the new baby. They're clearly at his place now. She's moved in with him.
And they've got a very specific setup for this baby that they've got in there, and then like it's obviously revealed to be very disturbing, and the baby's not wanting to eat and like getting really pissed off and upset as she tries to feed it.
Yeah, we already talked about what it's made of and stuff. We already kind of run on about that, so I won't. We can go on about more later as things develop with it. But yeah, it's very fucking disturbing looking. Like it looks like a real fucking animal fetus. So, he goes to bed or whatever, and he keeps staring at the fucking radiator. The focal point is the radiator a lot.
Yeah,
because at one point it zooms in to the radiator, and then it shows like this old like 1930s fucking stage.
Yes,
and that's pretty cool. Also, again, Twin Peaks: The Return.
That had, one of those little music box vibes to it when that's the way that stage was presented and looked.
Mm-hmm.
And that character, too, to some degree. Like her costuming and things like that.
Yeah.
She looked... How would you describe her look?
Well...
Do we see her at this point?
We don't see her at this point, no.
You just see him obsessed, but you see him laying on the bed, so you don't really understand why he's laying on the bed so fixated on that when there's like his wife and child are in the room.
Yeah. She leaves him because she's sick of the fucking baby crying. She's like, I'm fucking over it. I'm out of here.
Yeah, packs her shit and leaves, and he doesn't even seem to care.
And yeah, he's just like kind of going along with existing here throughout this whole thing. He's taking the baby's temperature at one point, which I couldn't tell what he was doing until after it showed the temperature, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then he turns around, and all of a sudden the thing has a whole bunch of fucking sores all over it.
Yeah,
and this is where I was getting sad, because I was like, man, this is fucking depressing as hell. Like,
yeah,
this is a poor fucking creature. But it's also maybe a satanic spawn from another dimension. You never know what it is.
Yeah, you just don't know what it is, right? Like, where does that come from? Like, is this thing evil? Is he trying to care for it? You just don't really know, because...
But when he cries when he tries to leave is when I'm like, oh, God, this is depressing.
The other interesting bit on that is he puts a humidifier out for it, because clearly it's having a hard time breathing. So it implies that the air is very dry, even though some of the ambiance doesn't feel dry.
Yeah.
But the sound design on that is great, though, too, because once that thing's going, it almost sounds like a tea kettle or something with some boiling water. And so that's really where that works, because it's unsettling, but it makes you feel how uncomfortable they want you to know that baby is.
He stares again in bed, staring at the radiator. Basically, we go back inside the radiator again and see the theater, and the lady in the radiator sort of, I wouldn't call it dancing, but sort of walking back and forth, sidestepping. Almost looks like dancing. And then these creatures, the same one that came out of his mouth, the same one that looks relatively like his baby, little ones start falling out from the sky, or not the sky, wherever, the ceiling in there. And then she starts stepping on them, and they start exploding and squishing all over.
Yes.
And their blood looks like fucking neon. Like it's probably used like white paint or something,
Yeah, because it's very reflective.
And yeah, that's crazy looking.
And she looks so unsettling, because she's made to look beautiful as far as her overall appearance until you get to her cheeks.
Well, her whole face, they've put like this weird thing on it. Like it's like the texture of it, it looks almost like paper mache or something weird.
Yeah, paper
mache. And her cheeks,
plaster,
like you said, are
like
fucking
that,
massive.
Yeah, the cheeks are massive, and they feel like dry plaster or something like that, so it looks really uncomfortable. And there's it's very dull looking, so it looks really...
I do like the unpotted tree he has on his fucking nightstand.
Yes.
Very also Twin Peaks. It's ridiculous. Oh, and then he wakes up one night, and she's back in bed with him, I guess. And he starts pulling more worms out from what looks like her vagina.
Yeah.
And is like throwing them at the wall and fucking killing them.
Yeah.
That's horrific. He bangs the woman from across the hall.
But was that before or after the weird claymation scene of the little...
I think that happens right after.
Okay.
A little claymation scene of the little worm crawling around and shit, and then
there's this wooden cabinet, and it's very David Lynch, obviously. Even early on, you get these weird peculiarities he does with the way he frames scenes and things, and they open these doors, and he puts this little worm in there and then closes it up very tightly, and it's very bizarre.
Yeah. Yeah, I also want to do a cut of this with, Spider-Man 2 reminds me a lot of this movie because of the shitty apartment that Peter Parker lives in.
Oh, yeah.
And how his neighbor across the hall is that woman, and she comes over and has pie and cake with him, like how David Lynchian that is.
Yeah.
Could make that black and white.
For sure.
And, like, add some Eraserhead sound effects to it. I think it'd be pretty cool.
The creepiest part, though, so, like, he gets with his neighbor, and they're obviously going at it. So they try to make it look kind of like a romantic scene. It's not just gratuitous by any means. And then you start seeing the baby, like, crying and, like, be getting upset while all this is going on. And it's intended to be unsettling, and it is unsettling.
Yeah.
It really gets the point across.
I liked it.
Did you finish?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
3 or 4 times.
I was hoping you would.
First 2 were hands-free. Hands-free ejac, baby.
Go, Web, go!
That's what I always say when I come. Oh, yeah, so then he's back in the radiator. He's back in the painting!
Yeah, he's back in the radiator.
And she's singing the song, In Heaven, Everything is Fine. In Heaven. So, yeah, she sings that song, basically, which always gives me the vibe where she's like, you should kill yourself. Oh, yeah. You should fucking die. It's cool. That's what that scene says to me.
That's a really... It's fucked up because you're just, like, watching at that point. You're just waiting for them to, like, to do something drastic, which obviously doesn't happen.
Yes, it does. Because then he gets his fucking head severed.
Oh, fuck, yeah.
It's fucking weird as shit.
Oh, yeah, because the...
and then it falls down and a kid picks it up.
His head's not even severed. It fucking shoots off like a bottle rocket. And then, like, one of the little baby-looking heads pops out of it for a second, but when they pan back over to it again later, that head is gone. Like, it's just the stump.
It's amazing.
Like the guy from Fall Out Boy. Just a stump.
Well, the kid found his head and was like, cool, I'm going to take this over to some other people who are like, pretty cool that you found this head, kid. And that's not exactly the quote they say, but...
No. And there's that whole sequence, which is another...
And then I think that's like another dream sequence, basically, because then he's awake again with the baby.
Yes.
And then he's with the baby, right?
And they're like, how do you get weirder than this? Well, we'll tell you.
He decides to cut the bandages off the baby. And this is also... I'm just horrified at this point. This is so depressing to watch because it is like... It's like it's a baby or whatever. You know, you're thinking of it like it's a baby.
Mm-hmm.
Of just a deformed-ass baby. And then he cuts it open, and what happens? The organs just kind of flat out lay around.
He cuts it open, and like, yeah,
basically its head stops having skin at some point, and all of its organs are just held together in like by the sack.
And one thing that I think it's easy to overlook is it looks like where the bandage is like fused with the skin to some degree, because like there's some soft tissue on the backside of those bandages as it opens up. But when I was watching this, I was thinking, like, this is the most disturbing take of the Christmas Vacation turkey cutting scene I've ever seen, because it's the way it's, like, split open and really gross and, like, upsetting to see.
Just a little dry, that's all.
Yeah, and then he gets upset with it and just starts cutting it up, and, like, blood goes everywhere. And
yeah, that's so fucked up, too. Because he stabs it, and it just starts murdering it and cutting it up, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then it fucking, like, grows into the planet. Basically, is what it looks like happens.
Yes.
The planet from the beginning of the movie where the man lives inside that pulled lever. There's a man who pulls a lever in the head and the planet on the bottom of the sea.
Is that when we see him struggling to control everything in the planet?
Basically. And then the planet breaks.
Yeah.
And then you fucking see inside it
And it goes back to that puddle-looking scene there very briefly, too, that you saw at the beginning of this puddle that, they eventually crawl out of towards the beginning.
And then you have the cover art, basically. That's just a screen grab from the movie where he's walking forward, and you see all that fucking...
eraser dust floating behind him, yeah.
And he walks into the woman in the radiator's arms. And then the static and everything gets pretty loud, and then it cuts out.
Goes to black screen for a couple of seconds, implying that there might be more, and then they just do a delay again before they roll credits.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much stuff you could take out of that. Obviously, it's not a traditional story arc.
A child.
Child. Now we become one. Now we become one.
I had a good time with this one, and I really just can't wait to cover the next Twin Peaks stuff because it's like that a lot.
It's with David Lynch, like having seen enough of his stuff now, like I didn't try to take anything more out of it. I didn't try to like look at all the stuff, but when you discuss it and you think about it, there's a lot of...
You also have to, it's surrealistic, and it's almost a little bit abstract at times.
Yeah, and so you could see that even if there's no straight...
Artsy-fartsy.
Yeah, but there's no straight, like, here's the moral of the story in this film, right? I mean, to me, it plays out like someone that's possibly dealt with abortion, possibly had a miscarriage, possibly had other things like that, other loss, like a post-birth loss. There's all these things that could come into play and have symbolism in there, but it really just shows, like, the darker side of reproduction, if you ask me. But
I guess you guys aren't ready for that yet.
We definitely weren't in 1977.
Well, the filmmaking community actually went crazy for it. Like I said, like Kubrick and people
yeah.
like that. It was kind of a midnight movie for a long time, like Rocky Horror was. Like it had a cult following, but back then, before the internet, cult followings were way more of cult followings.
Yeah, people would literally...
Like if you met somebody else who met a Eraserhead, you were like, all right, I need your phone number, I need your home address, we need to hang out.
You'd have a fan club.
Now you meet someone who likes Eraserhead, and you're just like, I bet you like the Smiths too, and you smoke Newports, don't you? You fucking skeet towel.
That's too funny.
So yeah, that's Eraserhead. I definitely think if you have seen if like a lot of people have seen Twin Peaks, and then they go and they try to watch other David Lynch movies, and that's what I've done, and I quite enjoy his work, so I recommend this one. If you listen to this and you haven't seen the movie, that's kind of weird, but also I do that sometimes too, because it helps me determine if I want to watch the movie.
Yeah, see what I'm missing, right? Is there some interesting stuff there? You're like, ooh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, like I listened to Hack the Movies cover Collateral Damage, and at no point after they reviewed it, I feel like I had to watch the movie. I was like, wow, that was good enough.
Yeah, got to the point. No, this is a classic, and then you just see so much of this and other Lynch work just pop up here and there, and then there's like that whole thing of like, is this motherfucker going all Stephen King, like Universal Monsters, and like, is this all a shared universe, or things all at some point in time, one way or another, connected in his stuff? It doesn't matter if they are not, because the way he tells stories, you can do that, and if that's what your head tells you, that's what Lynch wants you to believe.
Yeah, pretty much.
He's not going to answer your questions.
He says a lot of people always ask him why didn't do DVD commentaries or try to explain his films, and he says because the movie is the explaining, the movie is the talking, and he famously says, "Keep your eye on the donut, not the hole." What more is there to say?
Exactly, that sums it up. So we don't have anything too crazy this week.
Yeah, we didn't do a top 5 or any
so
creative segment this week.
It's been a hell of a fucking week.
Well, for me, it's been just a typical week, but it's been a hell of a week for you.
Well, you did help me move last Wednesday, and then I haven't really had any time to exist beyond that.
Yeah.
Because we had Planet Comic-Con this weekend, which is awesome, but that was good times. Met some of the Stranger Things kids, the Stranger Kids. That was fucking stupid. Am I tired, kids? I don't know.
It's taking me forever.
Smoke weed every day.
Anyway.
We now return to the real Ghostbusters.
Diane, 11:30 a.m., February 24th. Entering the town of Twin Peaks.
Pretty good.
Bill Murray's the funniest man on the planet.
Episode by episode.
We're talking some Twin Peaks here.
More David Lynch. If you don't like David Lynch, you can suck my cock.
What if David Lynch
Is that a little too aggressive or something?
I was going to say, what if David Lynch doesn't like himself? Does that mean he can
I
suck
need to
your
get
cock?
like a screeching brakes sound every time the podcast comes to a halt. Or a record scratch. That'd be funny.
Yeah. I think
drop
brakes.
that there all the time.
Like nails on a chalkboard.
Fuck it. Fuck it.
Fuck
yeah.
it. We'll do it live. This is season 2, episode 16. It aired February 16th, 1991. It's about 17 or 18 days after my birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Where I was born, not actual.
It's not his arrival to this existence.
This fucking bullshit that I should sue my parents over.
That's actually happened.
Yes, and it might happen again. Sons of bitches.
I didn't agree to come into existence.
Nope, certainly didn't.
I didn't agree to have to get a job. Yet look what you've done.
Mm-hmm.
Look what you did, you little jerk.
This one opens up with Wyndham Earle talking on a tape. Harry and
Microcassette.
Cooper listen.
I love it.
Harry and Cooper listen to that. Yeah, I got to be honest. I wasn't paying too much attention to what he said. I was like, I'm over it. I just don't like Wyndham Earle too much.
Yeah, he's not very fascinating. They didn't really play anything.
He gets better towards the end, but like...
They didn't play anything super important off that tape. So
he's running the long con at this point, and
yeah.
it gets old. Pete made Andrew a smiley breakfast with the eggs and bacon and shit.
Yeah, it was like if you've ever been to IHOP and you've had him do one of those like clown-looking breakfasts for kids. That's basically what he did.
It reminds me of Goofy movie.
Yes. It's ridiculous, but it's fun.
Yeah, no, it's funny because it seems like they are fucking each other because they're so into each other. There's lots of bromances in here where you're like, you know, they could just be healthy, normal male relationships, which is just fine. Mm-hmm. But also, I think they're having sword fights.
Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the old double Dutch rudder. You don't got to touch to have some fun.
They like to fraud about.
Yeah.
If you know what frauding is. Should I explain frauding on the podcast?
The floor is yours.
Frauding, for those of you in the straight community, is when you take your penis with another person's penis, and somebody grabs them and rubs them, and you like rock them back and forth and weird shit like that. I don't know, like grip them together and sorts of weird shit like that. I don't know. It's a thing though.
I have nipples, Greg. Could you milk me?
I mean, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. The more you know, kids.
Mother's milk.
Meac.
Oh, Jesus. Josie faints when she sees Andrew.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, this one...
He taunts her ass, too.
This episode goes in and out of being interesting literally the entire time. He's like, fuck your headphones, bitch. You don't need to hear things. Yeah, we'll just run through some of this stuff.
Well, run through
Hank
the stuff.
gets shit from Hawk and Harry. And that's funny because he's like, listen, fucking Hank, I know I can put you at the fucking scene of the crime, you son of a bitch.
Mm-hmm.
And Hank starts being a real prick, and he brings up Josie and shit, and he's like, listen, well, if I was fucking a murderer, basically, is what he said, I'd be an asshole too. And then Hawk kicks out his crutch from him, and he falls to the ground and shit. It's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
Hawk rules.
He's a badass.
Albert tells Coop, basically, you need to do something about Josie. This is fucking ridiculous. Just because, the sheriff's fucking her doesn't mean she's not a murderer.
Yep.
Billy Zane shows up.
Yeah.
And he's like, hello, I'm Billy Zane, and I'm here to ruin all the women in here's lives.
Audrey kindly, snarkily refers to him as Mr. Rockefeller, even though he's actually one Wheeler.
And he's like, I have a photo of you. I have a photo of you as a child.
It was very creepy.
I have a child!
Very, very creepy.
That's him, too.
Yeah. You don't like his character from it.
No, what's funny is, Eckhart is also a character that's in Titanic, who is Billy Zane's like right-hand man in that movie. What's even funnier about that, the fact that there's two characters in this episode from the movie Titanic, is there's a line in this movie, or in this episode, that is directly from this episode in Titanic. And this is obviously older. Yes. But it's the line that Norma says to Hank in the prison, "I'd rather be his whore than your wife." Which is literally what Rose says to Billy Zane in Titanic. Full circle. And by circle, I mean circle jerk. James Cameron, you're a thief. No, I don't know that. I'm just fucking...
My theory was that Billy Zane was like, hey, I got a really good line here. Got an idea.
Yeah.
James Cameron's not sophisticated enough to watch Twin Peaks.
I think James Cameron was definitely watching Twin Peaks. James Cameron used to be sophisticated. He made fucking Terminator 2, man. That's a pretty good movie. I mean, it's an action movie, but like as far as sophisticated action movies go, it's pretty all right.
Yeah, and
then he's, done shit lately, but fuck him. Butt fuck him, literally. Butt fuck him.
No, I wouldn't even want to do that.
I would, just so I could be like, you know what I did? I butt fucked James Cameron. I told him, as soon as I blew my load inside his butthole, I said, fuck Avatar, that movie sucks dick, and now you're going to suck your shit off my dick. Welcome to the Frog Brothers podcast.
Well, I was going to say, I wouldn't even hate fuck him, but you're talking about...
well, this is all consensual, but yes, it's a hate fuck.
Yes, okay.
It's a theoretical, consensual situation.
Okay. As long as you guys have agreed to that and sign on the dotted lowercase j's, you're fine.
So Audrey gets a thing that says, like, the Gathering of Angels, 9:30 at the Roadhouse, which we'll get back to it later. Yeah. Catherine gives Josie a gun for Thomas meeting, because she's supposed to be meeting Thomas alone, but she kind of gives her a gun so she'll feel safe or whatever, which is like, Catherine's so mysterious and you never know what her fucking true motives are. She's such an evil fucking conniving bitch that manipulates and gets whatever she wants, however she wants, and I don't even know what her goal is. Like,
I don't even think it matters.
It's so weird.
It's just fucking hilarious, so, because Pete's like so fucking dumb around her and doesn't have a care in the world.
Yeah, he doesn't even give a fuck that she's out doing what she's doing.
No, he's like...
He knows that she was fucking Ben and stuff.
He knows they're in love again still. He's like, well, she's my buttercup.
Pete's a saint, let's just say. I love that guy.
You may have recognized him from the movie Eraserhead.
Yes, that's true. Ben's tracksuit, black, pink, and purple. Man, I need that shit.
That Fila tracksuit looks so fucking
He's
fire.
He's fucking rocking that shit.
And that's like, he used to be the businessman, now he comes in here, and he's an environmentalist, and he wants to save the pine weasels.
Fuck yeah, he does.
Like, this is the whole 180, flip the script, change your attitude. We can't do the ghost real estate or whatever the fuck they call it.
Ghostwood Estates. Yeah.
Ghostwood Estates, because the pine weasels are endangered, and we got to save them. And so someone's like, we're going to save the pine weasels? He's like, no, that's not all we'll save. We'll save all the land around the Ghostwood Estates. So this is the first time you're going, what the fuck? Because, the last episode, they're basically like, hey, he's unfucked now.
Unfucked?
Unfucked. Yeah. Microwave a brain, and I think this is what happens. Don't try that at home, kids.
Yeah, the fucking James and Donna shit, I'm over it. I'm over their characters at this point.
No one gives a shit about their little lovey-dovey bullshit in the park as they lay down on a classic red and white checkered picnic blanket with a picnic basket.
Yeah, fuck them. Harry shows up to Catherine and Pete's and is like looking for Josie. And then Pete's like, oh, she went to the Great Northern. She said she was going to meet a friend. And Donna, Audrey, and Shelley all meet up at the Roadhouse, basically accidentally, because they each got a piece of that letter that said, meeting of the angels at the Roadhouse at 9:30. So they showed up, and then, you see...
They each have 1/3 of the magic puzzle poem.
And then they read it, and it's some weird, cryptic, not really interesting shit. And then Wyndham Earle's sitting over there, like, fucking probably beating off under his coat. He's like, yeah, those are some fucking... yeah.
He is the whole reason... He's the prime example, the classic trucker stereotype. He's got the trucker hat on, the jacket. He just looks skeezy and dirty and creepy, and you're like, you're giving a whole group of people a bad name, buddy.
Yeah. And this is where the episode comes to a shocking conclusion.
A shocking conclusion!
Cooper finds out that Josie is in
the Pussycats.
Eckhart's suite.
Oh, yeah, that.
Cooper's in fishing gear, and he's, like, practicing his fucking throw in bed for a while, which was funny.
Yeah, and he's got a tackle box open full of stuff. Obviously wearing some beautiful red plaid.
Cooper hears a gunshot outside the room, rushes in, and then Eckhart, like, stands up because Josie has closed her eyes and it looks like she's sleeping or dead.
Yeah.
He stands up, then you see his bleeding from his chest, and he falls over. And when he does, you see Josie is sitting upright with the gun pointed at Cooper, which was a cool little reveal thing.
Yeah.
I like that.
That was a good surprise moment there. And then Sheriff Truman pops in.
Put it down!
He has to put her in her place. He has to come in with that big dick energy and own the room. Because he's like, look, I don't want you to die. And then she starts to...
Well, and then the light starts flickering.
Yeah.
After she freaks out. And, like, Harry starts holding her. And then Cooper sees Bob come out. And Bob says, Coop, what happened to Josie? But he says it, creepy like him. How he says it. Coop, what? I don't know.
Yeah, Bob.
What happened to Josie?
Man from another place dances on the bed for a minute.
Disappears.
And then you have a zoom in on the desk handle.
Mm-hmm.
The little nightstand, whatever that is.
Yeah, the dresser, or
nightstand dresser thing. And then you see Josie's face in the circle. And then her face kind of disappears, and it becomes like a wooden CGI face. That's like a really good CG for TV, man.
It looks really good for the time, yeah. It even still holds up pretty well for what it is. And you see her face kind of moving around in there, and then she just becomes one with the door or the drawer knob.
Oh, we become one.
So...
And then it's like, end credits, freeze frame.
But you still see, like, her body is there, but her spirit is gone. Essentially, right? You see that... Because not Cooper, but
her body's
Truman's still holding her and like upset about this while Dale is seeing her face over in the drawer. Or it's implied that he sees it.
I'd have to read the books to know what exactly is supposed to have happened to her here. But I think, basically she's absorbed into the lodge to some degree, her soul.
Yeah, it's taken over. So
I want more soul.
That's one of those. That's one of the best parts about this series, though, is the weird shit they do just unexpectedly. Like, you have no idea that that's what's going on.
I have no idea. How long have we not been appearing here?
I think it just happened.
I assume so. Well, you can still hear us, I hope.
Our North American dingle horse kicked the Universal Serial Bus cable and caused some issues for us.
Yeah. Still causing issues.
Oh, yeah. You can just see our faces from outer spaces.
It's loading. Is it not going to work now?
Well, we'll just finish up this thing since we're almost done anyhow.
Yeah, we are basically done. So, just because you can't see my face doesn't mean I'm not doing dirty things.
You don't know how beautiful it is. So that's this episode of the Frog Brothers podcast. Stick around, hang around town.
You unplugged the camera booger.
And be sure to check out our reaction to Spider-Man No Way Home.
Skeet, skeet, bang, bang.